I never believed that technology could be haunted until the morning my smart mirror showed me something that hadn't happened yet. At exactly 7 a.m., as it did every day, the mirror lit up automatically while I stood in my apartment bathroom brushing my teeth. It displayed the weather, my calendar, and the usual morning headlines. Then, without warning, everything flickered. For less than 3 seconds, my reflection disappeared. Instead of seeing myself standing there, I saw my own bathroom covered in police tape. Red and blue lights flashed through the window, officers moved through the apartment, and someone lay motionless on the floor just outside the bathroom door. Before I could react, the image vanished. My normal reflection returned as if nothing had happened. I laughed nervously and blamed it on a software glitch, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The strange part wasn't the vision itself. The strange part was that the digital clock inside the reflection showed tomorrow's date. The rest of the day felt wrong. Every time I looked at a reflective surface, I remembered what I had seen. I worked remotely as a cybersecurity analyst, so I spent hours in front of computer screens, but I couldn't focus on a single email. Around noon, I contacted the company that manufactured the smart mirror. After nearly an hour on hold, a technician remotely checked the device. According to him, everything was functioning perfectly. There were no software errors, no security breaches, and no camera recordings stored in its memory. He even joked that maybe I had dreamed it before hanging up. I wanted to believe him, yet that evening, when I returned home with groceries, I noticed something impossible. The coffee mug sitting on my kitchen counter had already been shattered into pieces exactly the way I had watched myself accidentally break it 10 minutes later. The mirror hadn't shown a random nightmare. Somehow, it had shown me tomorrow. The following morning, I stood in front of the mirror before it could activate, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in the silent apartment. At exactly 7 o'clock, the screen illuminated. Once again, my reflection disappeared. This time the vision lasted almost 10 seconds. I watched tomorrow's version of myself rushing through the apartment, breathing heavily as if someone was chasing me. The front door slammed shut on its own. The hallway lights flickered. Then a shadow slowly crossed behind me in the reflection. It wasn't human. It was unnaturally tall, with long arms that bent at impossible angles. Before I could turn around inside the vision, the figure leaned close to my ear and whispered something I couldn't hear. The future version of me froze in absolute terror. The screen instantly returned to normal, leaving only my frightened reflection staring back at me. On the lower corner of the display, where the weather forecast usually appeared, 5 words slowly typed themselves across the glass. You cannot change tomorrow. I refused to accept that message. If the mirror could show the future, then surely the future could be changed. I canceled every meeting, unplugged the mirror from the wall, and even carried it into the storage closet before locking the door. I spent the rest of the day outside, wandering crowded streets, determined not to spend another night in the apartment. But shortly before sunset, my phone vibrated with a security camera notification from inside my home. The camera detected movement in the bathroom. Confused, I opened the live feed. The storage closet door was standing wide open. The smart mirror was back on the bathroom wall exactly where it had been that morning. No one had entered the apartment. No one had a key. Yet as I stared at the screen in disbelief, the mirror slowly illuminated by itself. On its black display appeared a single sentence that made my blood run cold. Tomorrow, you finally meet me. I barely slept that night. Every creak from the old apartment building sounded like footsteps outside my bedroom door. By sunrise, I convinced myself there had to be a logical explanation. Someone was hacking the mirror. Maybe it was an advanced prank or a hidden camera project. I called my landlord and demanded to know if anyone had entered my apartment while I was away. He checked the building's electronic lock records and sent me a screenshot showing that my door had never been opened after I left. That should have made me feel safe, but instead it terrified me even more. If no one had entered, then how had the mirror returned to the bathroom wall? Determined to prove I wasn't losing my mind, I borrowed security cameras from a co-worker and installed them in every room, making sure one pointed directly at the mirror. Before leaving for work, I checked each camera twice. If anything happened, I would finally have proof that this nightmare was real. At exactly 7 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed with 6 motion alerts at the same time. My stomach tightened as I opened the first camera. The living room was empty, the kitchen was empty, the hallway was empty. But the bathroom camera froze on a single disturbing frame before the video suddenly corrupted. In that frozen image, someone was standing in front of the mirror. The figure had my height, my haircut, and even the same gray hoodie I was wearing yesterday. It looked exactly like me, except its face was completely blurred, as if the camera refused to record it. I rushed home immediately. Every camera was still mounted exactly where I had left it, yet every memory card had been wiped clean, except for that one corrupted image. Then I noticed something that made my heart race. The mirror's digital calendar no longer displayed tomorrow's date. It displayed 3 days into the future. The mirror activated on its own before I even stepped closer. This time the vision was longer than ever. I watched myself standing in the apartment at night with every light turned off except the bathroom. Rain hammered against the windows while emergency sirens echoed somewhere outside. Future me looked exhausted, as though he hadn't slept for days. Suddenly someone knocked 3 times on the apartment door. Future me refused to answer. A second later, the knocking came from the bedroom window instead, 12 stories above the street where no person could possibly stand. Then it came from inside the bathroom wall. Slow, deliberate, 3 knocks. My future self whispered, "You're already inside." Before I could understand what he meant, the blurred version of myself appeared behind him in the reflection. It smiled with a grin far wider than any human face should be capable of making. The screen instantly went black. I stumbled backward, knocking over a shelf of towels. That's when I heard it. 3 slow knocks echoed from somewhere inside the bathroom wall behind the mirror. I froze, barely breathing. Another 3 knocks answered from inside my bedroom wall, then another from the kitchen. They spread through the apartment like something was moving between the walls, circling me without ever showing itself. My phone suddenly vibrated with a notification from the Smart Mirror's companion app, even though I had deleted it days earlier. The message contained only a countdown timer. 71 hours, 59 minutes, 58 seconds. As I watched, the numbers continued ticking down. Beneath the timer was one final sentence that made every hair on my body stand up. When the countdown ends, only one of us leaves the mirror. The countdown haunted every second of my life. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw that blurred version of myself smiling from inside the mirror. I decided there was only one way to stop this nightmare. I had to destroy it. I carried the heavy smart mirror into the parking lot behind my apartment building, borrowed a sledgehammer from the maintenance room, and swung it with everything I had. The first strike cracked the glass. The second shattered it into hundreds of pieces. Relief washed over me as the broken fragments scattered across the pavement. But then every shard lit up at the same time. In each tiny piece of broken glass, I could still see my reflection. Except none of them copied my movements. They were all staring directly at me, smiling. Before I could step back, every screen on the parked cars around me suddenly switched on. Their digital displays reflected the same smiling version of myself. A cold whisper echoed through the empty parking lot. Breaking the mirror only broke the door. Terrified, I abandoned the shattered pieces and drove across town to my older sister Emily's house. I hadn't told anyone what was happening because I knew it sounded insane, but I couldn't carry the fear alone anymore. Emily listened quietly as I explained everything from the first vision to the countdown timer. She tried to stay calm, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She insisted I stay the night and promised we'd visit a psychiatrist together the next morning. For a few hours I actually felt safe. Then, while Emily was making coffee in the kitchen, her smart television suddenly turned on by itself. The screen was completely black, except for one sentence written in white letters. "He brought me here." Before either of us could react, the TV switched to a live security feed of Emily's hallway. At the far end stood the blurred figure wearing my face. It slowly lifted one hand and pointed directly toward the room where we were standing. Emily rushed into the hallway, but it was empty. When she came back, every mirror in her house had turned to face the walls as if something inside them no longer wanted to be seen. That night we decided to search for the truth instead of running from it. Emily contacted an old college friend named Daniel, a software engineer who specialized in artificial intelligence. After examining the mirror's cloud backup files, Daniel found something impossible. The mirror had never connected to the internet before I bought it. In fact, according to its internal logs, it had been generating images and recordings years before it was even manufactured. Hidden deep inside the corrupted data was a video file with tomorrow's date. We hesitated before opening it, but curiosity won. The video showed my apartment exactly as it would look in less than 24 hours. Police officers were everywhere. Furniture was overturned. Blood stained the bathroom floor. Then the camera focused on a body lying motionless beside the mirror. As the image slowly zoomed closer, I realized the victim was me. Standing beside my body was the blurred figure, but this time its face became perfectly clear. It wasn't just wearing my face. It was me. Except its eyes were completely black. The countdown reached less than 12 hours. Strange things began happening faster than I could understand them. My phone unlocked itself and started recording empty rooms. My reflection disappeared from store windows while everyone else's remained normal. Complete strangers stopped me on the street asking if I was feeling better because they claimed they had spoken to me earlier that day, even though I had never met them before. The worst moment came when Emily looked directly at me during dinner and suddenly froze. Her face turned pale. She whispered, "Which one of you is real?" Before I could answer, every light in the house went out. For 3 long seconds, we stood in complete darkness. When the lights returned, Emily screamed. There were muddy footprints leading from the hallway to the bathroom, but neither of us had moved an inch. With only minutes remaining on the countdown, I realized the mirror wasn't predicting my future. It was preparing a replacement. Every vision, every warning, every impossible event had been guiding me toward a single moment. My phone vibrated one final time. The countdown reached 100. Every electronic device in the house shut off simultaneously. A deafening silence filled the room before a slow crack spread across the bathroom mirror from top to bottom without anyone touching it. Then a hand emerged from inside the broken glass. It wasn't reaching toward me. It was pushing itself out. The figure stepped into the room wearing my exact clothes, carrying the same scars, breathing exactly as I did. It smiled calmly and spoke in my own voice. "Thank you for keeping my life safe while I waited for yours." The creature stepped completely out of the shattered mirror while I stumbled backward in disbelief. It wasn't pretending to be me anymore. It was me in every possible way. The same voice, the same heartbeat, the same scar on my left wrist from a bicycle accident when I was 12 years old. Even Emily couldn't tell the difference between us. She looked back and forth, terrified, unable to speak. The other me smiled calmly and said, "I've watched your life for years through every reflection, every mirror, every phone screen, every window. I was always there. You only noticed me when the smart mirror became strong enough to open the door." My hands trembled as I demanded to know what it wanted. The creature looked directly into my eyes and whispered, "I don't want your life anymore. I want your place in reality." Without warning, every reflective surface in the house exploded with light. The bathroom mirror, the television screen, the microwave door, even the black screen of Emily's phone began showing hundreds of versions of me standing silently inside them. They weren't trapped. They were waiting. The creature suddenly grabbed my arm, and an unbearable freezing pain shot through my body. My reflection disappeared from every shiny surface around us. Instead, I saw the creature's reflection smiling back from all of them. It was stealing my identity piece by piece. Emily screamed my name and swung a heavy metal lamp at the creature. The lamp passed straight through its body like smoke before crashing into the wall. The creature laughed. "You can't kill a reflection," it said. "You can only replace it." Desperate, I remembered something Daniel had discovered in the corrupted files. Every vision from the mirror had lasted only until the reflection looked directly into the camera. Maybe the creature still depended on the mirror to exist. I grabbed the broken frame lying on the bathroom floor and pulled the creature toward the largest remaining shard of glass. For the first time, fear appeared on its face. It fought violently, trying to pull away, but I forced its head toward the reflection. The instant it looked into its own eyes, the house shook as though an earthquake had struck. Every mirror cracked at the same time. The creature let out a scream so loud that every light bulb burst. A massive black fracture spread across its body like shattered glass. It reached toward me one last time and whispered, "Another mirror, another door," before its entire body broke apart into thousands of glittering fragments that dissolved into black dust. The police arrived minutes later after neighbors reported explosions and screaming. They found Emily and me covered in cuts from broken glass, but there was no sign of another person inside the house. Every shattered mirror was collected as evidence, yet the investigators couldn't explain why none of the fragments reflected anything. They simply absorbed light like pieces of polished stone. The insurance company blamed an electrical malfunction. Daniel insisted the corrupted files had somehow erased themselves. No one believed our story, and eventually even Emily stopped talking about that night. I moved to another city, rented a small apartment, and filled it with ordinary furniture. There were no smart devices, no digital assistants, and not a single mirror anywhere inside. For the first time in weeks, I thought the nightmare was finally over. 6 months later, on a rainy evening, I walked past an electronics store on my way home. A brand new display of smart mirrors had just been placed in the front window. I kept my eyes on the sidewalk, refusing to look, until one of the screens suddenly spoke in my own voice. "You forgot something." Against my better judgment, I glanced at the display for only a second. Every mirror in the store showed the busy street behind me, except one. In that single mirror, I was standing completely alone. The blurred version of myself slowly stepped into view, smiled exactly the way it had before, and raised one finger to its lips. Then, without touching the glass, it gently waved me closer. As I turned away and hurried into the crowd, every digital billboard, every car window, and every dark phone screen I passed reflected the same smiling face watching me. That's when I realized the truth. I had never escaped the mirror. The mirror had escaped with me.